Thank you, David. Folks, I want to welcome you to the next seminar in our educational series here at the 29th January Fund Convention. Our next speaker, Mr. John Roberts, is a man I worked professionally with when I was grading for ANACS, and now I'm with ICG. And John also now has a column, which he's had for many years, on VAMs for Coin World newspaper. Those of you who get Coin World obviously are familiar with John. I worked with John for what, 5 to 10 years in Columbus, Ohio area, and it was a real pleasure to work with a man whose knowledge is at a level that John's is at. And I feel like we all learned from his investigatory checking in the VAMs and his theories and why these things happen. He's a tremendous source for information. And that's why he is so much in demand. We're thrilled to have him here for, I guess this is about the 10th or so consecutive year. I've kind of lost track.
Year number 9, Randy.
All right.
9th year.
All right. Well, maybe make at least another 9 or 19 or whatever it is. But the tremendous interest in VAMs vastly outstripped what it was when myself and Denny Thostison were trading VAMs back and forth. Denny, didn't you live in Minnesota or Wisconsin at that time?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and as time has gone on, there's gone from being a few dozen vampires to thousands of them now, I would estimate. And the market has expanded, exploded to levels I never thought possible back when I was doing this back in the 1970s. And one of the persons that's most responsible for this is the man who's going to speak to you next. All 9 years, he's been giving you his top VAMs for the coming year, and this year is no different. You're going to love the ones that our guest John Roberts has picked out for you. So, John, I hope you have as much fun as you've had in the past, and it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. John Roberts.
Thank you, Randy. I'll see you tonight at the bank. Well, I'll see you one of these other banks.
That's right. That's right. Hey, how y'all doing today? Thanks for the introduction, Randy. I am John Roberts. I'm the author of the column about VAMs for Coin World. Also, for the past 15 years, I've been the Director of Attribution Services for ANACS, although that was not always my job title. I kind of grew into it after a couple of years. But I get paid to look at other people's money. My hobby is now my job. Maybe my hobby is not as much fun as it used to be because it's work, you know, that dirty 4-letter word. But some of it is fun. Some of it is fun. And not just Florida United Numismatists. They're real kind of fun. I mean, they can cross, but I think my selections for this year, some of them you will look at and you'll want to know more about the coins. Not just from an economic standpoint, but from an interest standpoint. I have a list here that I'm going to draft someone into passing out. Chris, you look like you could handle this. This list will be going live as a registry set on the SSDC shortly after this presentation is done, if it hasn't already happened. I talked to a couple of gentlemen, they told me they would click the button so I'd be able to play around and have that up. It's all up there already. But, these are our selections this year. Any point in time during this presentation, if you have questions, please stop me, sing out, and we'll talk about what's going on here. So I went with 12 selections this year. I didn't double dip on any of my slots. And some in the years past, there have been multiple varieties that fill one of the slots, but I went with a strict 12 this year. So most of what's on that slide is stuff I just said, so I won't say it all over again. Any questions about the SSDC registry? Does everyone know what the SSDC registry is? I'm getting some nods, I'm getting a few blank stares. If you're a member of the Society of Silver Dollar Collectors, one of the prime benefits of being a member is access to the registry program. There are a number of competitive sets there, and every year that my recommended buy list becomes a registry set as well. It's a fun thing to compete with, and I've gotten a lot of positive feedback for having these sets out there. Thanks, Chris. We're going to dive right in with something tough. This is a coin that was so weird. When it first got sent in, it got listed as a counterfeit. It was originally listed for what Leroy called a bar loop mint mark, and then he decided that this was a contemporary counterfeit because there was a lot of weird lumpy stuff on the coin. With further research on other varieties, we discovered that in '79 in San Francisco, the mint was playing with the thickness of the coins. So they were over polishing reverse of 79 coins to try to get them to the same thickness as reverse of 78 coins because they wouldn't stack properly. A stack of 21 reverse of 78 coins was the same height as a stack of 20 reverse of 79 coins. And this was quite a scandal to the bankers in the area. So the mint there tried to do something about it, improvised, and their improvisation was not the most attractive thing. They over-polished dies, so there was a lot of detail missing on the reverse, and then they did this stuff with acid. You can see here some weird filling on the bow here. This is actually from acid etching on the die. This wasn't a particularly effective patch job, and there are several stages to this. They're all desirable, but I picked the final stage that, in addition to this acid and over polishing, there's a nice radial die break right through the 7. This late stage is pretty tough to find. I think this is something that will appreciate in value over time. And I think if you find one of these in almost any grade, you'll be happy to acquire it. Good luck finding one, but when you do, buy it. Next up, this is a coin I bought over the past year. I've had examples of this come through before. It's an overdate, it's a top 100 variety. Everyone knows about this. It lists on the gray sheet, if I'm not mistaken. It's ADO VAM 4, it's a strong overdate. Everyone recognizes that. But if you get a chance to acquire one of these with PL or DMPL surfaces, or like the coin I bought, ultra deep mirror surfaces with cameo contrast, it is just they're tough with PL surfaces. The coin I got it was so cool, it went on my list today that it showed up on my hands. That is one of the things I do. Some of the stuff that I recommend to buy are coins that I bought. So I'm telling you to buy stuff that I bought. I thought it was cool enough to drop my own money on. Haven't bought one of these yet, but I will. It's not the rarest thing on the face of the earth, but if you have a pile of 83 cc's and you're going through, this will be the hardest one to find. I've gone through several thousand 83 cc's, and there's maybe dozens of these compared to thousands of other ones. The various stages of the VAM 5, you run into those all day long. I don't even remember off the top of my head specifically what VAM 2 is actually listed for. I think it's a tilted mint mark or something like that. It's easily identified by this little dot right there. You're going to want to get this in a GSA holder, but pretty much all 83 cc's that are mid-state either started life in a GSA holder or they're still sitting here. It's a great example for the date, and I may not leave the show without one. I had an example of this come across my desk a couple of months ago, and it was so cool that I did a column about it, and I also added it to the list. It's listed as having a guy gouge, this big bar through the ear, through the lower ear here. But in looking at this particular example, notice the weird shape. That's not really a gouge. And it got me thinking about how else this could happen. And I've come to the conclusion that this is probably hugged through debris. When they sink a die, in between blows, they have to turn off a little bit of the excess metal on the die face, and you can get scraps of metal settled into the die face, and then it gets hugged over. This is known for other series. To the best of my knowledge, there is nothing like this listed in Morgan dollars. this would be the first one, if I'm not mistaken, so somewhere along the line here. I'm probably going to send this to Leroy for potential revision. It won't change what it is, it still will be a 33A, but this thing is a lot cooler than, it was already considered kind of cool. I think it's cooler than we know. And I think it's the kind of coin that, looking back on, you'll wish you had more of them. I already had one in my collection. I bought a nicer one at the show. The guy sitting here in the room, he's kind of nodding his head going, thanks, John. You know I bought it for a reason.
Yeah.
So that may actually end up being the new play coin. On to the next one. This has the same obverse as the 85S VAM 9 with the repunch mint mark that's in the top 100 that for a while there people thought was just rare, rare, rare. Okay, so those things are kind of valuable and people like them, but they're not the super rarity that they were once believed. They still command a fairly significant premium. But this is actually the same obverse. It's actually rarer than the VAM 9. You've got the tops of a couple of digits there down in the denticles. And what's great about this is when you find one that's already attributed, it usually sells for just slightly more than a regular 85S would bring. You can buy these for, like it says there, little or no premium. And it's a cool MPD. And it's a semi-key date. I love coins like this. It's decent as a date, so when the VAM market's a little soft, the Morgan market can bail you out. Any questions about this? What the whole deal with the MPD is? Moving on. We'll go through these pretty quick. I ended up with an example of this. I've certified a couple of these. Having seen it in hand, that gouge through the A of dollar is way cooler than any picture will capture. It is a state. It is a stage. It's a clear die stage. It's not something that happened at inception and is just listed as a die stage. Because this same marriage is known without this gouge. So this long gouge through the A of dollar that has this displaced field along its one edge happened during production. Maybe feed your finger, maybe angry worker throwing tools around the coining room, who knows? I don't think it's someone's feet. It may be a feeder finger. I don't actually think it's a mint worker's finger. But something got on the die and got struck into the die, marring the surface. It is one of the tougher 87s to find. There's only a handful of these things out there. If you get an opportunity to buy one of these, it's well worth picking up. They haven't gone crazy in price yet, but I think as time goes on, the demand for these things is only going to go up. You would think that with 87s that somebody's going to pop open a roll of them or find a bag of them, and that just hasn't happened because that variety's been out there for a while. And guys have been looking for it. The professional cherry pickers among us would actually pick this up without not necessarily knowing what it is. Others would know what it is and would definitely pick it up. And there's just not a ton of these coming out. I usually try to avoid recommending listings that are brand new because we think they're rare, we think they're impressive, and then over time a bunch of them come on the market and they're just, while they may still be cool, they're just not that rare as we originally thought they were. We end up paying way too much for something. This has been around long enough that its rarity is starting to show that it is a legitimate rarity for the state. This one's always been recognized as a rare coin. It's Scarface. I mean, it actually predates VAMs. But Scarfaces are expensive. I bought an example of this last year. And this particular stage, this is Harrison Stage 8, where the scar is from the nose down solidly into the cheek, but it doesn't reach the hair. This counts as a scar face. If you're doing the top 100 set, this counts for that. This is depending on who you deal, this thing will run you a third of the price of the 2 later stages. You know, stage 10, it's hard to touch those things for under 10 grand. I saw a stage 9 sell at this show for $7,500. I paid a little over $2,000 for this coin. I bought this last year. It was expensive, but relatively, to fill the slot in the top 100 set, if you get a chance to buy this thing, I would definitely take it. I could not cash out fast enough when I won this auction. I couldn't believe what I got it for. I was very pleased with this outcome.
What grade was it?
It's 62, lovely toning. This actually was one of the pieces off of the coin board. So it's got that crazy reverse on it with a big circle in the back. All of those that come off of there, that has a very distinctive toning pattern. So you're not really seeing the toning on the obverse, because all of the obverse, it's all peripheral toning, but the center of the coin has this cool target toning on it.
What were you expecting to go for?
I thought I was going to have to drop at least $3 grand on it, and I was probably going to quit at around 3,500. So I got it for just slightly over half of what I was expecting to pay for it. Any other questions about that Scarface stage? I'm not putting all of the Scarfaces in, I'm just putting that particular stage in. So specific to Harrison Stage 8. In VAM parlance, it's VAM 1B3. The 2 later stages fall into 1B4. But specifically, it's Harrison's Stage 8. Not cheap, but all things are relative. If you're going to get a Scarface and not get run out of the house, this is the way to go. This is one that I've talked to a couple of people about it. They have no idea this is out here. This is a 91 VAM 1A. If you want to buy your friend something for Valentine's Day, this is the coin for you. It's hard to believe that this is accidental, because when you see it on the coin itself, it really does look like it is a deliberate heart-shaped punch right in the forehead. They call it a die chip, but it's hard to believe that it really is hard to believe that this wasn't somebody playing around. These are rare. They're usually not attributed on the holder. You might have to cherry pick it, but if you see it attributed, pick it up. You'll look at it and it's fun. It's just fun. I pull out my example and it makes me smile. I've had it for a few years, but I was going through the list and I was flipping through some of my coins and I ran into this one again. And I was just happy to see it again. This was discovered by someone else in the room, and I don't know yet. I think you sold the thing short when you came in, where you just couldn't convince Leroy to put the stuff in the listing, because this thing is listed as loaded. And that's all it says, loaded in the description. Miss Liberty looks like someone threw spaghetti at her, and she got it all over her hair. The more you look at this thing, there are these long spaghetti-like dye lines all over her hair. I mean, the more you look at this, they're in the cap, they're in the upper hair, in the lower hair, behind the ear. All this in the lower hair, there's more up there. The more you look at this, like I said, the more you look at this, the more you're going to find. That, and it's a 94S. So here again, this is an example of a semi-key date, a variety that you're probably not going to have to pay a premium for. You're going to be able to get for common money for that date. And it's the kind of coin that you look at and you just keep finding more and more on it. It's a coin that you're going to want to look at over and over again. I don't have one of these yet. I had a couple of examples come across my desk, and just doing someone else's coin, it's actually a welcome break for most of the stuff that I look at. You have an opportunity to buy one of these, you better do it, because you might be bidding against me. This is a coin that I've wanted for several years, and I actually strong-armed someone into selling an example to me here at the show. So I actually bought this here at the show. It's a coin you may actually pay more for if you try to cherry pick it than buying it attributed. It's got these weird triangular things popping up off the shoulder here. This is actually from the denticles, the space between denticles from the opposite die. It's a hard denticle clash right above the eagle's shoulder. There are guys that specialize in this. They would definitely try to buy this if they saw it at an auction. So you got to bid in, you think you're winning, the price goes up, you don't want to let it go, so you bid some more. You end up getting into a bidding war when you thought you were cherry picking. I've seen things like this happen with other things. This is definitely the kind of coin that you could end up doing that. The example I bought here, the guy didn't really want to part with it, but I can be persistent. He's not in the room right now, otherwise he'd be back here. Thanks, John. Peace dollars. Don't fear the dark side. Don't fear it. This is actually an awesome opportunity right now. There's a lot of quality material out there. A lot of quality material that is attributed on the holder. There's a ton of stuff from Lloyd Gabbard's estate, all attributed as California. Other pieces, they don't have his attribution on it, but they're still from that source. Top 50, elite 30 pieces. Just, there's a lot of quality material. I've already starting on next year's list from a coin I bought at this show. I picked a couple of these up off of eBay, and the two that I picked up here, they both made my list because I was impressed with what I was actually able to purchase. Everyone knows Scar Cheek. It's a relatively famous variety, but specifically selected this late die state that additionally has this, there's this faint gouge through the G of God, and there's also kind of a cool die rig on the reverse that looks like, not on the reverse, that looks like the extra hair gouge, extra hair rigs. But the fact that it's this late die state, the Scar Cheek is always fully formed. Did I have a hand back there, or are you just getting tired?
No.
All right, cool. If you do that in an auction, you end up with stuff that you didn't really want, but that's all good. You have to watch out there. We might be doing an auction later, and I definitely will get you for that. So yeah, Scar Cheek, and then with the late guy saying the other thing, you got this nice long extra hair thing there. As I say, this is an opportune time to be buying peace dollars that are already attributed. There's a lot of quality material out there. The things that I've been seeing being offered for sale, I'm pretty happy with some of the things I've been able to buy that are out there in the market. A lot of stuff is shaking loose, and there's not as much competition for peace dollar varieties as there are for mortgage dollar varieties. It's a smaller pond, so the picking's better. This is my final selection for the year. I bought this coin. It's a nice mid-state piece, attributed on the holder. Low population. It's not ultra rare. It was under $100. It was under $100. Got this nice little break on there, and you turn the coin, you can see that there's this longer crack coming off here. I think that probably in the terminal state of this, maybe the whole shoulder would break out, maybe. I don't know. I only see it with
maybe this little break here. I know there's an earlier stage of it, but for the money that this sold for, I would buy more than one of these. I mean, the guy that I bought it from, he only had the one, but it just seemed, for what it is and what it represents in the set, it really does seem like a bargain. That is my list for this year. Are there any questions about any of the pieces on the list?
I have a question.
Sure.
The 94S and VAM9, in VF and lower power lines,
I'm not really sure. Some of them would certainly show up. Let's go down. So in VF or lower, you wouldn't see this sort of thing. But that would show up. That stuff in the lower hair, you'd be able to detect that.
so you'd want to look in the lower hair for...
You'd want to look in the lower hair, but if your key variety feature that's of the most interest is worn off the coin, that does give the thing a hit. It's kind of like, you know, it's kind of like having a scar face where it's been circulated or a scar cheek that's been circulated and you can't see the scar cheek anymore. It's like, we know that's what it is, but if you can't see the key feature, it's kind of loses something. It is possible to attribute in lower grades. I would pursue this coin in probably XF or AU. I mean, if you want to drop unk money on a 94S, there's some nice ones out there, and you probably won't pay any extra for it. They'll be just happy to just sell you the coin. Any other questions? Sure.
What's your go-to source for value for pricing VAMs as far as marketing?
More than anything else, my gut reaction to the price that they're asking me, that really is my go-to source. I mean, I know some history on some of these things, and I mean, I have some of the old pricing information.
Yeah.
We are working on getting a new pricing guide out, but more than anything else, it is my reaction to the price, if I think it's worth it or not. So sometimes I really am flying by the seat of my pants. I've been at this for a while, so I have some idea of what some of these things should bring, and when they seem like a bargain to me, I'll jump on it, even if some of the other market indicators are. Sometimes I pay too much, sometimes I get bargains. So more than anything else, it's experience. Any other questions? Well, I thank you all for coming out, and I encourage you to come back next year. And that was kind of short and sweet. We're having another presentation in here in about 20 minutes or so. We've got the room if you want to circulate and talk VAMs or talk about anything else. My field of expertise is actually coins, so if you want to talk to me about anything other than coins, I may be a little outside of the expert realm. Thanks.
Thank you.
And somebody get the lights, we have to sit around in the dark.